Evelyn, 68, wakes up early and makes her usual breakfast, white bread with jam and a weak cup of coffee. She believes it's light and that her stomach appreciates it. For lunch, she has a simple plate of pasta because it's easy to digest. In the afternoon, she has a little sweet treat to lift her spirits. By evening, her body craves the couch. Her legs feel heavy, her mood dips, and her mind slows down. She thinks to herself, "That's odd. I'm taking care of myself." But the mirror tells a different story. Her clothes hang looser on her thighs, yet the stairs seem steeper every week. The hidden sugar in these light choices has quietly stolen her strength and energy, without warning. Evelyn also avoids protein. She cut out eggs because they're heavy, eats fish only on special occasions, and rarely touches meat. What she thought was kindness to her body has become a silent loss of muscle. Something similar happened to Harold, 72. He didn't notice when he started pushing himself up from his armchair using the table for support, as if he needed a boost. One day, his grandson asked him to play on the floor. Harold agreed, but struggled to get back up. He laughed it off, but inside, he felt ashamed. The lack of protein finally came due. Seasoning became another trap. Evelyn adds extra salt to give it some life and pours a generous drizzle of oil into the pan. Her neighbor Linda does the same. It's bland without salt. The results show up in their lab tests: high blood pressure and stubborn cholesterol. Dr. Collins explains gently that their taste buds have grown used to excess and now demand even more. They leave his office with that familiar mix of alarm and resolve, which usually lasts only until the next recipe. Fresh fruits and vegetables have become afterthoughts. In their place are whole grain cookies, instant soups, and convenient canned goods in the pantry. Nora, 70, loves the convenience: open, heat, done. But her body notices. She feels bloated, thirsty, and fatigued in a way that doesn't match what she's eaten. The labels may boast low in this or a source of that, but the daily total adds up. The truth is simple: convenience doesn't come free. Another invisible thread pulls everything downward: too little sun. Evelyn spends entire days indoors. Curtains half drawn, TV on, a warm cup of tea in hand. Her vitamin D levels drop quietly. Her bones lose strength, and her immune system falters. Daniel, 74, learned this the hard way. A small bump on his hip turned into weeks of caution. He'd always believed walking around the block is enough, but his skin hardly saw daylight. The bill arrives slowly, and it's heavy. Then there's what makes you sick without a plate or a pill. Evelyn catches herself replaying stories from the past, always the painful parts. Each memory brings a fresh complaint. Her sister Grace calls and hears the same thing again. They love each other, but they hang up exhausted. Inside, her body reacts, stress builds, cortisol rises, and sleep suffers. The next day, everything feels heavier. It's better not to bother anyone, thinks Walter, 76, when his daughter invites him to lunch with friends. He thanks her and declines. It becomes a habit. Silence feels comfortable, until his memory starts slipping and the house feels too big. His mind needs people, conversation, laughter. Without it, his thoughts lose their spark. There's also the habit of hiding sadness. Linda smiles for her family and says she's fine. Inside, she feels a thread of anxiety tightening around her chest. She calls it silly, pushes it aside. Without naming it or tending to it, the weight grows. Her body screams inwardly through fatigue and vague aches. It becomes hard to tell where emotion ends and illness begins. When it comes to learning, Evelyn often says, "I've already lived all I needed to live," and closes the book. Memory games, a simple online course, a new hobby, all get postponed until tomorrow. Her mind loses its sharpness just as muscles lose strength without use. Jacob, 69, realized this when he forgot his bank password for the third time and got angry at himself. He swore that technology just makes everything complicated. The problem isn't the screen, it's giving up. And then there's the fear of exercise. Arthur avoids stretching, convinced any effort might hurt him. One fall and that's it, he repeats. Meanwhile, his body forgets how to move. His balance worsens, and his confidence fades. He spends his life trying to prevent the fall he imagines, and edges closer to the real one he's trying to avoid. These small choices, added together, tell a story no one wants. White bread and sweets disguised as light. Too little protein. Extra salt and oil. Fresh fruits and vegetables swapped for convenient packaged foods. Sunlight barely touching the skin. Complaints becoming background noise. Social silence mistaken for politeness. Sadness tucked away in a pocket. Learning put off indefinitely. Fear of movement. Each seems minor, until the day the body clearly asks for help. Evelyn realizes something must change when she tries to open a simple jar and finds herself lacking strength. Her grandson offers help naturally. She thanks him, but a question echoes in her mind: when did I stop feeling alive? The answer doesn't come in a pretty speech. It comes in the sound of her shortened breath on the stairs. It comes in her short temper after a restless night. It comes in her desire to feel better, and in the shock of admitting that her harmless habits quietly built the perfect conditions for her health to decline, day after day, without fanfare. She takes a deep breath. Grabs a notebook and writes down exactly what she actually did during the week. She sees the full picture, without excuses. For the first time, she understands that the life she wants depends on the steps she takes inside her own home, the conversations she accepts, the meals she prepares, and the sunlight she lets touch her skin. The story is ready to turn. But for now, it's important to face honestly what brought her here, because that recognition is the first act of courage. But what Evelyn is going through is far from an isolated case. What looks like just routine, the white bread, the weak coffee, the easy meal, is the portrait of millions who believe they're taking care of their health. Yet behind these simple gestures lies a quiet chain of missteps that gradually drain energy and the will to live. And that's where the Rayal story begins. You're watching Life Guidance After 60, a channel created especially to offer practical advice and real-life stories for those who've passed the 60-year mark. Since we're a new channel, we need your support. Please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming stories. Evelyn spends her days replaying everything the doctor told her. The phrase, lifestyle changes, echoes in her mind like a challenge. She doesn't want to rely on medication for the rest of her life, but she realizes the problem isn't a lack of strength, it's habit. Every old routine is glued to her memory: the white bread at breakfast, salt sprinkled from her fingertips, the TV as constant company. Changing seems simple, until it's time to actually choose differently. On the first morning, she looks at the table and misses the smell of toasted bread. She boils eggs, slices a banana, and tries to convince herself it's okay. The taste is different, her body feels unfamiliar, but something inside whispers that it's worth continuing. In the days that follow, Evelyn starts paying closer attention to her body. Her stomach feels lighter, sleep comes more easily. Still, there are moments when she thinks about giving up. At the grocery store, she walks past aisles full of cookies and pasta and almost grabs just one little pack. But she remembers how tired she used to feel and steps back. Simply saying, "Not today," becomes a small victory. At home, she begins cutting back on salt. At first, everything tastes bland. She tries new seasonings, garlic, oregano, dried herbs, and is surprised to discover that food actually has real flavor. Excess oil gives way to carefully measured portions. Her hands, which once poured without thinking, now measure with care. It feels strange, yet freeing. Her body responds quietly, less bloating, more lightness. Evelyn doesn't celebrate out loud, but she feels a quiet pride in every small adjustment. One Saturday, Linda visits and notices the change. "Going all fitness now?" she teases. Evelyn laughs but explains she just wants to age in good health. Linda thinks it's overkill, until Evelyn mentions her bones have weakened from lack of sun. The conversation sparks curiosity. The next day, they go for a short walk together. Sunlight touches their faces, and the gentle warmth feels like a hug. Evelyn senses her body absorbing energy it hasn't received in a long time. 15 minutes turn into 30. When they return, they're both smiling. This simple habit of stepping outside brings a lightness no pill ever could. Over time, Evelyn begins noticing details she used to ignore. Her body gains firmness, her mood lifts. Even the mirror seems kinder. But the greatest gain is invisible. For the first time in a long while, she feels in control of her own life. Every meal becomes a conscious choice. She writes everything in a notebook: walked today, ate fresh fruit, got some sun. These notes become a journal of renewal. Meanwhile, Harold, her longtime friend, watches her from the sidelines. He still avoids meat and spends his days sitting down. Evelyn invites him for a walk, but he brushes her off, saying he's too old. She remembers the doctor's words: a body that stops moving grows weaker. She decides to gently persist. One day, she brings him a piece of grilled salmon to try. Harold grumbles but takes a bite. He smiles and admits, "Not bad, huh?" Small gestures, big shifts. Evelyn discovers that physical changes are just the beginning of something deeper. Her mind starts to catch up. She wakes up wanting to move, tidies the house while listening to music, and opens the curtains to let sunlight in. The TV, once her all-day companion, now fades into the background. She'd rather walk in the backyard, tend to her plants, and cook her own lunch. Every old routine she lets go of makes room for a new version of herself. During one of her walks, she notices how alive her neighborhood is. People chat, dogs play, children run around. She greets neighbors, receives smiles, and feels a simple but powerful sensation: belonging. Isolation loses its grip. Brief conversations blossom into quiet friendships. Evelyn begins to understand that while the body feeds on food, the soul feeds on connection. One afternoon, as she prepares dinner, she feels proud for the first time in months. Her plate is colorful, fragrant, and light. She reflects on how she once believed taking care of her health meant simply eating less. Now she sees that eating well is different from eating less. This clarity changes everything. Her aches fade, her fatigue disappears. When she returns to the doctor, he smiles at her results. "Keep it up," he says. She leaves his office with a sense of victory, but also fear. Deep down, she knows, changing her body was only the first step. The real challenge lies within her mind. And it's at this stage, when her body begins to heal, that Evelyn realizes there's still something else that needs transforming, something no medicine can fix. This discovery is about to change everything all over again. Evelyn thought swapping white bread for eggs would be the hardest part. But the real change was still ahead. When the body starts to respond, another challenge emerges, the challenge of transforming the mind. Because eating better isn't enough, you also have to heal what the mirror can't show. And what Evelyn is about to discover will prove that the most powerful kind of health begins from within. Evelyn woke before sunrise, opened the curtains, and let the light in. She felt the fresh air touch her face and, for the first time in a long while, realized how deeply meaningful that simple act had become. It was a symbol of who she'd become, someone who'd opened herself back up to life. Her body, once weary, now responded with energy. Her mind, once heavy, felt clear and calm. But most importantly, there was something that didn't show up on tests or measurements, the peace that came from choosing to start over. She made her coffee slowly. The white bread and sugar had been replaced by fruit, eggs, and a cup of tea. As she ate, she remembered the early days of her change, how hard it had seemed to let go of old habits. Now, every choice felt natural. Not out of obligation, but out of self-love. With each bite, she felt proud of the discipline she'd built without even noticing. Her body had become her ally, not an enemy she needed to fix. Later, as she walked to the community center, she passed familiar faces. She greeted neighbors, smiled at children, exchanged kind words. That version of Evelyn, the one who avoided contact for fear of being a bother, no longer existed. Now, she belonged to something bigger, a web of affection and shared life that strengthened her. Isolation had given way to connection, and that exchange restored a sparkle to her life that time couldn't erase. At dance class, the music started, and Evelyn took her first steps. They weren't perfect, and they never would be. But that didn't matter. Every movement was a celebration of what she'd reclaimed. Laughter echoed through the room, and between one turn and the next, she realized something essential. It's not the body that ages first, it's the spirit that gives up on moving. When the soul settles into stillness, the body follows. But when the heart starts dancing again, everything begins to bloom once more. After class, she sat down with Linda and Martha to talk. They spoke about how small decisions change destinies. Martha mentioned she'd started painting again, Linda shared that she'd joined a choir. Evelyn listened and smiled, knowing each of them had found her own path to healing. There was no magic formula, just the courage to change. And that courage is born quietly, in the moment we stop telling ourselves, it's too late. On her way home, she passed the bakery where she used to buy bread every day. She paused, looked inside, and felt a mix of nostalgia and gratitude. That old routine represented a version of herself who cared for her body the wrong way, believing light meant the same as healthy. Now she understood that lightness means living without guilt, without regrets, and without fear. She stepped inside, not for bread, but to buy flowers. She chose a sunflower, a symbol of the sunlight she'd learned to seek every day, both outside and within. That evening, she sat on her porch with her notebook. She wrote, "Today, I feel that growing older is a privilege. Every wrinkle tells a story worth living. Every change I faced brought me here." She closed the notebook gently. The distant sound of neighbors laughing blended with the chirping of crickets, and she smiled. Life hadn't ended at 60, it had begun again at 70. A few days later, the doctor called to go over her latest test results. "Evelyn, your numbers look great. Keep it up." She thanked him, but after hanging up, she whispered to herself, "I didn't just keep going. I was reborn." Because deep down, she understood that true healing wasn't in diets or medications, it was in the decision to believe in herself again. Now, Evelyn is known around the neighborhood as the woman who dances, laughs loudly, and inspires others. Younger people are surprised by her energy. When they ask her secret, she answers simply, "Taking care of your body matters, but caring for your mind is essential." Joy is the best medicine. As the sun sets on the horizon, she feels her heart full of gratitude. There's no miracle in youth, only movement, hope, and the will to live. Evelyn proved that aging isn't about losing your light, it's about learning to shine in a new way. And that's the lesson she leaves behind. It's never too late to change, caring for yourself is an act of love, and living with purpose is the true antidote to time. Age is just a number, but your attitude determines whether your body grows weary or your heart keeps dancing. So before this video ends, remember her words. Stop doing what makes you sick. Start doing what wakes you up. And you'll see that your health, and your life, can improve by 100%. Evelyn's story shows it's never too late to change the course of your life. She turned small gestures, opening the curtains, walking in the sun, choosing what to put on her plate, into a full rebirth. What began as an attempt to care for her body became an awakening of her soul. Evelyn proved that aging isn't the end of vitality, it's the beginning of a new way to live, with awareness, joy, and love for oneself. And if she could start over at 70, what's stopping you from beginning today? Our channel was created to share guidance and meaningful reflections for those living the best chapter of life, after 60. We're just at the start of this journey, and we need your support to grow. So please, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and help spread these messages of inspiration.